Good day, everybody. Welcome. Those that have joined us, Chantal here from New Heritage Foundation. And today we have our dialogue about women's rights or human rights. Tomorrow is International Human Rights Day. And obviously we don't want to bother everybody on a Saturday. So you're here with us a day ahead of time on the Friday. Joining us to have a discussion on ending period poverty, which is what our organization is about, to make sure that girls menstruate with dignity, to make sure that they have education, to make sure that they understand their reproductive health, to make sure that they understand body changes, that they understand that there's no shame and there's no stigma, and that menstruation is not a curse. And we find that lots of young girls feel that it is a burden because most of them are menstruating without dignity. Currently, plus minus 7 million girls in South Africa are menstruating without dignity, 500 million globally. And we just want to bring that attention today as a collective to action to make sure that women and girls are menstruating with dignity and not compromising their reproductive health. So we've got a rise in the space. We've got various people that we will introduce, and they will also introduce themselves. That's here, but we want to open it up with a bang. So just stay tuned, and we'll hand it over to the person that will open it up for us. We just want to say to the organizations, and obviously this is a very demanding work that's happening, and a lot of activists here and globally actioning ending period poverty and other GBV matters, and equality and gender equality and human rights. We find that the work can sometimes be very demanding, but today we want to say collectively that we can rise. So stay tuned for the person that's going to open it up for us today. Thank you. Okay, you can now close it again.
Good afternoon, everyone. So I'm just really privileged to be here this afternoon, and I'm going to encourage you with a song or a chorus of the song called Rise Up. And here we go. And I'll rise up, rise like the day, and I'll rise up. I'll rise unafraid, I'll rise up, and we'll do it 1,000 times again. And we'll rise up, rise like the day, we'll rise up, we'll rise unafraid, we'll rise up, and we'll do it 1,000 times again. And I'll rise up, rise like the day, and I'll rise up, I'll rise unafraid, I'll rise up, and I'll do it 1,000 times again. Thank you.
Wow.
Wow.
Can each one just come closer and just one at a time? Yeah. So we ending period poverty, she bleeds and she bleeds Africa, and we want Africa to arise to the women and girls globally, or all in Africa, so that she can menstruate with dignity. Thank you. menstruating with dignity. "16 days of activism, #women's rights. Women's rights are human rights. End period poverty. Gender-based violence, end and stop the gender-based violence, rise up in the voices, and let us all say no. And She Matters, end period stigma, and end period shame, end period poverty. Thank you, ladies. Maybe we'll just put it like that. Hello. Okay, everybody, we've got some guests in the room over here, and we're very grateful for those who are attending in person and those of you that is attending online. We have three speakers today that's going to speak on period poverty, human rights, the girl child, the women. There's a lot of things that we have in place. There's a lot of policies that we have. And I won't say a lot of policies, but there's a lot of written down action, or rather the problems that we're having in terms of ending period poverty. There is infrastructures in place. Today we have this panel more about the action that we want to take collaboratively, the collisions that we want to start a movement in actioning and tracking where we are working and how we can change the narrative in ending period poverty and making sure that women's rights and the rights to menstruate with dignity is also classified as something of importance, to make sure that she arrives for her education, she's present for her future endeavors, she is capable, she is not frustrated, she is not bleeding in isolation, she is not stopped, she doesn't feel that it's a burden, she's not carrying this by herself, she doesn't feel that she's been made wrong, that she actually can embrace and have the equality like every young child in a privileged home, where you never have to have the burden to have to take care of it by herself, without solutions, without the support, without provision. We speak for her today, and we speak that they are heard amongst ourselves to action such a narrative, which is very important. So today we have with us, I'm going to let her introduce herself, and we're going to ask our speakers to come up as well.
Thank you very much, and thank you for this wonderful invitation and warm welcome. My name is Nomvuyo Mabusela. I work for the Western Cape Department of Social Development as the manager for sustainable livelihoods and the Sanitary Dignity Project. I will speak more on this as we go along with our program. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nomvuyo, for joining us in this space. We're in good company today. And then we have with us, so we have with us here one of the students, the program that we've had, Jade, is here with us today. She was one of the participants in the grade 11 class at Cedar High, and she was part of the program that was part of their life orientation that her school allowed us in to teach on sexual reproductive health. And she's going to speak on that narrative here today. And then we have with us the woman with the golden voice. We have Lauren van Reede here with us, and she's going to speak on the privilege that she's experienced about her menstruation and what it made her feel like as a young woman embracing that moment. She's the one who got excited. She's the second one that I've met so far that got so excited when she got her period. So we just want to put that, and then finding the narrative in the understanding as we come together, as we discuss this, that we will come out of this dialogue with a collaborative action, what we're going to do next. Thank you. So, so going forward, we will start with Jade, that will tell us about the program that we have had at this school and what that meant for her.
Good afternoon, all. My name is Jade Joy Swartz. I am a poet, youth activist, mediator, spokesperson, and also recently what I can add to my list is I am an ambassador. And I'm so proud to be called an ambassador, knowing that there's so much hard work to it. But this afternoon, I am also I'm not here to talk about myself, but I'm here to tell you guys what the New Heritage Foundation has done in my life. So firstly, what they did is they came to my school and we had a session in the life orientation program where they taught us how to make pads from scratch. That experience was for me so mind-blowing because never in my entire years of going to school has a program like this come to my school and taught me such important information. And so I'm so proud to be an ambassador and be part of such a breaking program. But this afternoon, this program came to my school and the boys in my class was present, and that meant the world to me. Why? Because the boys in my class, they are going to be our future dads, our future grandpas. You know, they are the heads of our households, our husbands, our fathers of our kids. And so many times when they get married and they have girl children, they don't understand what the girls go through. But thank you to this program that the boys in my class, they now know what to expect when they do get married and then have a girl child. So that really meant the world to me. To me, it meant everything personally, because I could then go into my community and explain to them how to make pads and also the importance of how it is to menstruate with dignity, how important that is, because I've learned that when you have your periods and you use toilet paper, it is so dangerous and it doesn't have and it has long-term effects. So that is what I have learned. And I've also noticed that 15% of that was removed from the price of sanitary pads, meaning that 7 million girls in South Africa do not have access or they can't afford it. So this means that 30% of girls do not go to school when they are on their periods, which is wrong, because just as it is important for men and for males in our community to get to go and get circumcised, it is important for me as a female, as a girl, as a woman, a young lady to have periods. It's important for me to menstruate with dignity. I'm the reason why my legacy will grow, why our generation will grow. Why? Because the child comes through me. So if I cannot menstruate with dignity, then how can I? So it's important. And I think what is very, very important is that we need to realize the importance of menstruating. Why? Because our mindsets need to change. If your mindsets change towards pads and having topics more about it and having open conversations about it, then I think this world will then change for the better. And remember that hygiene is important because the Bible even speaks about it. The Bible says that cleanliness is close to godliness. So if I'm not clean, if I'm not hygienic enough, then I'm far from God. And if I'm far from God, then I might as well just be dead. Because without God, we are nothing, to be honest. So that is why it is important to menstruate with dignity, because we as females, it's important to us. It's important. Just as food and water is important, just as our daily things is important, menstruating with dignity is important. And that is why this afternoon, I'm so proud to call myself ambassador of the New Heritage Foundation, because I know this foundation that I'm part of, they're standing up for something that's right. They want to make a change for the good and the better. So therefore, I say thank you. Thank you.
I'm just gonna take over New Heritage Foundation. Okay. Yes. So that is very passionate of what it comes through. I know it can be very daunting to be in a space where you have to speak of that. Is there anybody in the room that wants to say something, that has got something to say to that effect? Is there anybody online? I don't want to miss anybody that is online that has got something to say, that you want to give input. If you want to, you can also put it in the messages, in the comments, because we would appreciate that as well. Jade, I also just want to ask you, in terms of the program that we had in school. I know when we arrived at the school, the first time when we arrived at school, when we got quite a shock. But I know when they got into the class and the teacher says, this is New Heritage Foundation and they're going to be teaching you about menstruation, the boys were like, oh no, this is not going to happen. You know, they were but I found that they were very like supportive and very actioning it out. For yourself, I want to ask, have you menstruated without dignity?
Yes, I have.
What did that make you feel like?
It made me feel like I'm not enough. I'm not seen. My voice is not heard, and I feel like we should make importance of this so that the people can see that we as females, we are important, and that is why I believe we should menstruate with dignity.
Okay. And also, now I know we've done the program, and I know you here with us, and you asked, because of what we've done, she signed up immediately. She wants to be part of the movement as the ambassador for New Heritage Foundation. But when we came to your school, did you understood before then, or was this just amplifying to your knowledge of your reproductive health? Was it more insightful? What was the importance that you took out for you from we did the sanitary pads and we did the reproductive health education and the menstrual management, but what was that? Did we amplify it, or is it still something that's missing, or is it something that you have all the knowledge of when you started your period, or was this something that you could learn from and also give to others?
Yes, I've definitely learned a lot from this program. But like you just said now, that I've never known this much information about periods and about your cycle before you guys came. So I've definitely learned a lot, because when I was in primary school, or even in my early years of high school, programs like this, foundations like this never came to my school. So this was really an eye-opening for me, because I've learned the importance of it. I've learned to notice a few things in detail when you do have your periods. And I've also learned to share information, because so many other girls, so many other females, even grown women, mothers, wives, didn't know about the importance of having to menstruate with dignity. But now that I have this knowledge, I could then share this with them. And thank you to that.
Thank you so much. That is from Jade, who is now our ambassador. Hopefully one day soon, or maybe very soon, she'll be taking over New Heritage Foundation. So like I said, if there's any messages that you guys want to leave in the comments for us, please do so. Or if you want to speak, please raise your hand. I'll be handing it over to Lauren right over here, and she will speak from a point of privilege in terms of menstruation. Yes.
Thank you, Chantal. I've greeted already. Oh, should I stand? I'm standing. So I'm Lauren Lee. I'm a singer-songwriter, a voiceover artist, a wife, a mother. And this year I've joined Chantal and the ladies as an ambassador. So it's something new. I've never done anything like this. And I love that I'm here. So I just want to give a background story on how I met, or how I heard about New Heritage Foundation. I was at a networking event. I sang there and I promoted myself as an artist. And then here Chantal stands up and speaks about New Heritage Foundation. I made a joke and I said, I literally fell in love with her, but I actually fell in love with New Heritage Foundation through her because of how passionate she is about the project and the fact that she goes the extra mile, you know, to make people know about New Heritage Foundation. And for the first time, I went out on to the field, as they would call it, going into the schools, and that's where I also met Jade at Cedar High, and I sang there as well, and I got to speak with the kids as well, and that was also very, very life-changing, because yeah, just to sit there and hear what the kids shared, it blew my mind, because I'm like, at this age, you as kids are just supposed to be kids and just worry about your schoolwork and enjoy life. But here you are being held responsible for certain things that you shouldn't be held responsible for at that age. And so, but I'm going to speak about the privilege that I had growing up. So I was 12 years old when I menstruated for the first time. I remember we came from church, and I went to the bathroom, and I'm like, something, I knew what was happening, but I was like, okay, it's happening today. And then I was like just screaming, I was calling my grandmother, I'm like, Mama, come kyk, come look, what's happening over here? And then they're like, no. In Afrikaans, they would say, jy het jong meisie geword. So that's the moment when I got my period. I'm not telling you a word of a lie. I was very excited to menstruate, and I had the privilege to menstruate with dignity, in the sense of the moment when I got my period, there was a pad handed to me. And I heard through Chantal when she spoke about there are 7 million kids in South Africa. There are 7 million kids in South Africa that doesn't have that privilege. And to have heard that, it was very, very, very sad, because I'm one of the privileged kids where I get handed a pad because you just got your period. But other kids, they don't have that privilege. I could go to school even though I had my period. And I heard Chantal said, oh, everyone speaks about some kids, of the 7 million kids, or most of them, they use toilet paper, and that is not good for your reproductive health. And now I'm just imagining that girl sitting in the class. She's like, okay, I have a piece of toilet paper down there. Okay, what if I bleed through? And I'm thinking, what if she has a heavy flow and now she's bleeding through, and you will feel embarrassed that whole entire day. You will cover it up. And it's another thing that I mentioned is that when growing up, yes, I menstruated with dignity, but I was ashamed to go and buy my own sanitary towels. And now that I'm older, or I'm not as shy to go and buy a sanitary towel. But what was the eye opener was, from a male's perspective, my husband, then he was my boyfriend, he was like, I'm not shy to go and buy sanitary towels for my mom and my sisters, because he said it's the most natural thing to happen to a woman. Then I was like, okay, wow. And ever since that time, I was like, that is so true what he says. It literally just it literally just sparked something in me, like, why do you need to be shy about menstruating? And now I'm just thinking of those girls. They already don't have, they're already not menstruating with dignity, and maybe they are, like in my case, they were shy to go and even say, you know, I got my period. But that's why we thank foundations like New Heritage Foundation, where they go out to schools and teach and educate not only girls, but they teach the boys as well. That was also I was like, wow, but it's a good thing, because we need more males to know about it. And yeah, that is me on menstruating with dignity. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for that. We can clearly see that she's very excited when she had her period. I wasn't. Definitely, I don't know who else in the room that are menstruating, that would either say that it's challenging for them when they are menstruating. So we've seen, or we've heard from somebody that has the privilege about menstruating with dignity. So, and it comes with challenges. It comes with either heavy flow, it comes with backache, it comes with feeling displaced, hormones up and down, that's got cravings. There's a whole body changing moment that happens for a girl, for a young woman, for a woman that has already had children as well. There's a lot of changes, cravings. Who else in the room has got cravings for chocolates and all of those kind of things? It happens. You kind of feel very displaced in that space. And what about the embrace? There's so much more that you want to just be heard, feel embraced, and all of those kind of things. Now imagine all of that happens with you without sanitary pads. All of those, what does that make you feel like? You have to deal with the internal stuff that's happening. You also have to deal with the fact that you don't have, or your mind already, you have to make a way. So also there can be, even mentally, it can challenge you. It can feel that you are not getting the right amount of support, even at home. And I just want to make an example of my 12-year-old. She would love to be 13. She can't wait, she says, to be 13. The one child that makes you a mom, that challenges you and in everything that you are doing, has this whole idea of when she has a period. And her period is she wants to have, her sisters must all take care of her. They must run her a bath. They must bring her clothing. Well, she's got a twin sister that's got the worst of it. A twin sister must make sure her clothing is upstairs, you know, when she baths. The elder sister must make sure that she is running the bath for her. Her father must know what she craves for. She wants to get in our bed. She wants to sleep there. And then she says, but she's not allowed to do anything. I said, Lisa, how can you not want to do it? She says, but you said. I said, I haven't said that. I'm teaching people to menstruation mustn't stop you. She says, I'm sure I heard you say for the first 3 days we must not do anything. So, and she is like a little fire that you just want to make sure it doesn't grow much bigger than that. And she stands on a word. It goes into a family debate that at some point I have to put her out of my room, because she follows me with a lot of demands for that day. She wants the ice cream must be ready. She wants to just lay. She even wants me to not work for that day. I must not work for that day. I must watch with her action movies. She said it's part of life where she is embraced. But what I love about that, so we accommodate Lisa as far as we can, not to the whole extent. We do that. We like when she started a period, she started very young, apart from her a twin sister. So what we've learned from Lisa and how we've explained it to her and how we embraced her, Lisa would get up and she has this whole bushy hair that when it's loose, today it's tied up, it's in its place. But when it's loose, Lisa gets up and she walks into any restaurant, any shopping mall, whether it's brushed or not. She just feels that she owns her body and her look, and she's very confident. She embraces the holistic part of her life. She's never feeling that she's not beautiful enough. Like if she, like one night, it was 11 o'clock, she found me in the bathroom. And she walked in, and I've got this big mirror. She walked in and she says, oh gosh, but you are beautiful. To herself, not to me. Because she looked that way and she saw herself 11 o'clock at night with PJs on. And what I want to say is being an advocate in the space of ending period poverty, being a woman myself menstruating for most of my young life without dignity, and being a cervical cancer survivor, and having a daughter like Lisa, and I've got 2 beautiful daughters, 3 daughters exactly, that is not so demanding. I think, yeah, no, they're not. But having somebody that embraces her, being a young girl, being proud of her body, embraces her body the way she does, we want that for every other young girl in our society, whether they are next door neighbor, whether they are at our schools, whether they are within various communities. It shouldn't be underserved or privileged. It should be wherever our girls are, wherever our women are, they have the same right within that country, within that scope, to menstruate with dignity. It should be something that we champion for. Because if we're not, those are the ones that are out of our society. They are out of our reach. They are not part. We are celebrating women empowerment, but they are not there in that spaces. They rarely get into rooms like this. They rarely get into the spaces of workspaces where they can apply for employment, or they can apply for the universities that they want to enter, because most of the time they have not even been present at school. And currently, menstruation is stopping not just women and young girls in high schools, but it's stopping them at primary school level already. It's already taking them out of society. It's already stopping them from participating from that level to menstruate with dignity. And if that is not something that wakes us up to say, if we say we all need to arrive, then half of us are not here. And so many much more, because it's generational and it falls on to that extent. And through our programs that we've done in schools, not only are girls absent from not having sanitary pads, they are absent because of period myths. Sitting next to a boy makes them bleed more. You know, drinking milk can make them bleed to death and die. It's the period myths that says if I jump into a pool, it will fill up being red, which is a fear that they already have. It's something that in society, it stops them from participating in activities, in curriculum in schools, in social, being out there with friends, because we all know what COVID did to us, being isolated from family and friends and just in our homes. Imagine that is just about a year or two that we've had to go through that more intentionally the first couple of months, what that felt like. Imagine somebody knowing that every month I get my period and I'm out of society for that period of time. And they're already mentally prepping themselves for that period of their lives. So it is something as a human rights that we want to highlight it, bring the awareness that it is so much more than menstruation. It's who we are as women and where we want our young women and our future generations to be able to reach. But in order for them to reach, we need to actually make sure that there's that platform where we go and collectively join and collaboratively action ending period poverty, so that they can fill up rooms like this and societies and workspaces and school grounds and universities. We want them to fill it up in the numbers. So Lauren, from a privileged point of view, with all that said, if you didn't have the support, what would that have made you feel like?
I think that I wouldn't have felt that I'm menstruating with dignity. It would have, because I know you as a young woman, you really go through a lot of insecurities. So I can just imagine, like, if that was also added onto the list, how I would have felt. It wouldn't have made me feel like, you know, I'm worthy of something, or yeah, that's just how I would have felt. Yeah.
Okay. Does anybody have the time? Are we still good for time, Arthur?
Yes, 37 minutes past.
37 minutes past, we're still good for time. Is there anybody online that would want to say anything, and anybody in the room? Lisa, you are in the room. Don't you want to come show people who you are? So that they can just see the child that makes me a mom.
Here I am, guys. I'm Lisa Goliath, as you can see.
Yes.
The confident one and the beautiful one. Here I am, as you can see.
We deal with this all the time in our house. Lisa, how does it, what is the type of pads that you would want to use? Yeah, but is it, are you heavy flow or you light flow?
No, I'm heavy flow.
Okay.
I'm heavy flow.
And what would you like your pads to be for you, having to have the type of flow that you have? Do you have, when I say what type of pads, I don't mean a brand. I mean, what would make you feel comfortable with your periods?
what would make me feel comfortable is having a comfortable pad and being able to use the right one, and just making me feel, because that would just make me feel more confident, and just, it would make me feel really good in my pad. So I like a good pad, so like it doesn't make me feel like uncomfortable.
So you need long pads.
Yeah. Yes.
Anything else that you want to say?
Just for all the young people out there, I just want to give a message to you, say that you are beautiful and that you are strong and that you need to be confident in whatever you do. Don't be shy. Don't feel like your voice doesn't matter, because you matter, your voice matters, your opinion matters. And one day when you go out in the world, you're just gonna realize that nobody actually cares. just be yourself. Just be yourself.
Yes. Sometimes you must be careful what you like. She's very vocal in that space. Her twin sister is the total opposite of who she is and all of that. But okay, so is there anybody in the room that wants to have, that has something to say, something to add to what we are discussing? So with that, there's what we want to do is not the idea of how we want to change people menstruating, like dictating, like just identifying that pads is what we need to menstruate with. We want to actually find out what is the need, because sometimes we can easily provide pads as organizations, as institutions, as donors to sanitary pads. We also want to highlight this today, that it's easy, some is cheaper than the other ones. And if I say I'm going to reach out to 100 girls and I get a donor that's going to donate pads to me, I'm ultimately thinking I'm doing an amazing job by just going and taking that 100 packs to girls. But I don't know if they have a heavy flow. I don't know if they have a light flow. I don't know if their skin are sensitive. I don't know if they have need of more than one pack of pads. I don't know if they have, because what we also found that girls live, they are, especially if you work in underserved communities, they are households that has got 3 other properties on one property. And when we reach out in schools, we can say, oh, this girl needs a pack, and we give her the pack of pads, but she's got siblings, she's got an aunt, she's got a cousin that all live on the same dual property, that they're all there, and it's like a domino effect that everybody else also struggles. Or maybe we say, let's give her 2 packs, and we're thinking it for 2 months, it will last her for 2 months, but it will only last a month, because that other pack is going to go for somebody that is fighting the similar challenge that she's fighting. So it's finding out, how do we close the gap in that? Is it more conversation based? Is it something that we need to evaluate and monitor more? Is there a space where we can get them in the room and rather ask the question before we go and do the outreach? Because I think that will ultimately give us an idea. Because if I'm going to reach a girl like Lisa, she has a heavy flow, so she likes a longer pad because that will make her feel secured in her jeans or in her tracksuit pants when she goes out. If she has a shorter one, Lisa is still going to have the pad, but Lisa's not going to partake in society. So that's also a challenge. How do we navigate the fact that we can provide the sanitary pads in that space, but are we having the conversation of what the need is? Because besides them not menstruating with dignity, they also are, I would say, robbed of the opportunity to choose. Because then it ultimately leaves it up to us, who are the providers, or the people that brings about the sanitary pads to schools and communities. Then we are then the ones that also makes that choice on behalf. And this day is a good day, because it's a human right, and we are here to choose. Because if we don't allow them to choose, we're taking that right, we're choosing for them. And we need to also highlight that in our workspaces when we are reaching out. It's not about just having 10,000 packs of pads. That's not the narrative. It's about what are we doing with those conversations? Because that heavy flow is going to feel more confident if she has 3 packs of pads or 4 packs, but she can use it to double it maybe up if it's short enough. So one is not going to last her. So are we taking the choices of girls also away for them, because they are the ones, if we're saying underserved communities and impoverished communities, then ultimately we are the ones that provides it, but they never get a chance to walk into a store, to choose their brand, to know what they need, and also have it with confidence. So I feel it's more conversational based to, if we want to change somebody's life, that we have their input on how we change it. As organizations, the ones that are present online with us, joining us, I feel that when we can also dialogue this as a collaborative in the spaces that we work. How are we going to navigate to make sure that we don't take the right of those that we serve, take their voices out of what we're doing? So, without further ado, I'm going to have our special guest here that is going to give us a little bit more insight to either our questions or rather the work that they are doing within our country. I think it's good if you stand. It gives you. Yes. Okay. So do you want to stand on that side, or do you want me to do it this way? Yes.
Okay, good afternoon once again. My name is Nomvuyo Mabusela. I work for the Department of Social Development in the Western Cape. My portfolio includes being a manager for Sustainable Livelihoods Program and the Sanitary Dignity Project. So I'm here in my capacity as a manager of the Sanitary Dignity Project. So I think first of all, let me thank you once again for this invitation. Having conversations and dialogue about ending period poverty matters. It matters because we know that whilst it is a visible problem, but it is also an invisible problem. As we sit here amongst ourselves, we don't know who today could very well be dealing with an issue of period poverty, because it is invisible. But it's a visible problem because it is something that a lot of women and a lot of young girls, as we have heard some of the numbers, continue to battle with every single day. So I'm quite happy to be here, to be part of this conversation. For me, it is not only work, it is also personal. Not only as a woman, but a woman of my generation, who's slowly approaching 50, and having gone through bouts and bouts of period poverty. Even though my mother was a nurse, but there were a lot of challenges. Money was never enough. It was never enough. She had to choose between providing for us and buying a pad. Sometimes was considered a luxury. And so whilst on many occasions I could get a pad, but I remember those moments when I couldn't. And so from that experience, I can relate and say confidently, I know what so many women and girls are going through. As much as society has evolved since then, but I think for us, it's more evident than ever before that much of our struggles have not really changed. However, we have made progress. The fact that we sit here today means that we have made progress. It's not where we want it to be, but the conversation is happening and someone is listening. And more than anything, we are listening to ourselves, because part of what was said by the speaker in the beginning was that we could have had this event tomorrow because it is International Human Rights Day. And so we have it today because Friday is within the week and it's easy to access people and spaces. But if we are to say women's rights are human rights, indeed they are, but they are not an add-on. They are an integral part of our lives. And so when we say women's rights are human rights, part of some conversations and questions that we need to ask, are we creating environments for women to be able to access those rights? Are we creating environments for girls to be able to live those rights? And one of the things that we know about period poverty is the stigma that is attached to having periods. It's a social stigma which includes cultural, stigmatization, not only from the elders, but also amongst children themselves or young girls. But I think what matters in that regard is the conversation around ending stigma, destigmatizing periods, destigmatizing it amongst women, first of all, where I remember when I had my first period, even though my mom was a nurse, I was told, no, you should not bath in front of your brothers. You should bath separately. But that was a mild one. And I've heard stories from other girls where they weren't allowed to cook. They weren't allowed to leave their room unless they were called. They weren't allowed to touch certain dishes because they were seen as dirty, unclean. They weren't allowed to go to church. Sometimes they couldn't even bury their loved ones because when you're in a period, you can't enter a gravesite. And so when we speak of human rights, then we ought to speak about the environment, because the environment should be conducive and enabling for women and girls to be able to live those rights. The one area that was also mentioned is the work that we need to do with men and boys. We have to have these conversations with them as well, because they are also affected. They are affected as brothers, as sons, as fathers, and uncles, and everything else. But what we also know in this country, we have high incidences of GBV. And so that tells us that there is so much that we need to do. And we are doing it. But at the same time, there is so much more space that we can access. I think you spoke about coordination and collaboration, and I'll speak a bit more about that. But really, there is a lot of work that we can still do with our boys. And it's not only a woman's responsibility. Yes. We should be bringing men on board. I will speak about that as well in the work we do as a department, how we engage men so that they can also begin to address issues of toxic masculinity that are linked to shaming girls when they have their periods. I'll give you one last example before I talk about what we do as a department. My daughter has not had to experience period poverty in her life. Because of my own experiences, I made sure I prepare, and I made sure I prepare well. You might even almost want to call me obsessive because I literally buy in bulk because I never wanted to run out. I think it's an anxiety that I'm not always aware of, but then realize when I look at her wardrobe and I look at that shelves where she keeps the pads for day, for night, the wipes and this, and the little packet that she carries in her bag, and the one that she has to leave in the school cabinet just in case something happens. But can I tell you something? She is 15 now. She turned 15 in September. When I asked her, just having a conversation, trying to suss out where she is with some of these things, the education and everything, we did all of that. And the school, she got that as well. She goes to a private school, but that's not the point here. The point is when I asked her, what would happen to you if you were to have a leakage at school? This is someone who has the different choices that you were talking about. And she said, oh my God, with all the boys in my class, I'll run away from school. But that said to me, there is really a serious conversation we need to have about stigma that is attached to period. The fact that with all the resources that we think are necessary to address issues of period poverty, but the environment, the stigma, is also something that can actually drive girls away from school. Yes. So let me talk about the work that we are doing as a department. As a department in 2019, to respond to the need of indigent girls in the Western Cape in terms of issues around sanitary dignity and upholding sanitary dignity for those girls, we decided to collaborate with the National Department of Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities. They are the custodians of this big project for the entire country. And so we came on board in 2019. The project was rolled out to the Western Cape. Currently, the project is located in our provincial office. Ideally, what we want is to have this project across all the regions of the province. But at the moment, because it's in a small scale, it is here in the provincial office. However, its location has not stopped it from rolling it out throughout the different provinces. And so currently the project is providing sanitary towels to 302 schools. This is about 159,000 girls that we provide sanitary towels to every single month. So there is a lot of coordination that happens even at internal level where we have to get suppliers. What the project has ensured is that we use this opportunity to also empower women. So our service providers, we make sure that we go for women-led companies, and especially those companies that are led by not only women, but by women with disabilities. And so some of the challenges we have, of course, is that some of these companies do not have enough capacity to be able to take on the kind of work that you are doing at this magnitude. But we are also putting systems in place to try and have them trained, to try and have them empowered, so that when we have tender processes and bid processes, they are also able to compete with the big players. But one thing that we don't compromise on, all the suppliers should be local. Those that are working for international brands that I will not mention, we said no, because again, part of addressing period poverty is to address it at its root causes. And the root causes of period poverty is poverty. Yes. So ending poverty will eventually end period poverty. So currently the project operates with a couple of staff members that are seconded to the project. It doesn't have designated staff, but this is mostly because, again, it's fairly new, but I think it also speaks to the fact that issues and the momentum around addressing issues of period poverty as a country didn't start long ago. It started fairly recently. The emergence of COVID-19 also exacerbated the problem for a lot of families. So currently we have a lot of families that are struggling for resources due to unemployment. And so we see a rise also in the number of girls that need to be supported. Next year, we will be adding on 50 schools to the 302 schools that we have. So we will be reaching a little over about 200,000 girls. I like what you said, where you said it's not just about providing pads. And so one of the things that we have actively done is to ensure that within these schools, we make sure that we include schools of girls or learners with disabilities. What we found was that within the system of listing schools within the education department, the schools of learners with disabilities are listed differently. And as a result, do not really appear in the list of schools. But we have made an effort once we came to know that information to ensure that we pull them in so that they are supported. So next year we will be supporting about 10 schools of girls with disabilities. So beyond providing just sanitary towels to schools, we make sure that we also provide the necessary education to empower girls. And so what we have, for example, is a way of modeling as well. We have a gentleman in our project who's also quite involved. And this gentleman is involved in issues of addressing toxic masculinity amongst young boys in schools, but also advocating for more education that is targeted towards young boys and boys in general in school. And what we have found is that whilst we have distributors that will distribute pads to schools, one of the interesting areas of monitoring that I have been watching with a close eye is what is the turnaround time that the school takes upon receiving the package? How much time does it take for the packet to reach a girl's hand? Because whilst we are providing these pads, we want to make sure that they reach the girls at a time when they need them the most. We are providing only 10 pads in a packet for now. It is not enough for the reasons that you have mentioned, but we also believe that it makes a significant improvement between having a child or a girl totally absent from school to at least having days where she can be at school. But it means that we are also able to reach more girls. However, I do agree that it is not enough, and it doesn't give them the choices that they should be enjoying in terms of choosing whether they want a long one, they want a thin one, they want a thick one, should it have wings, should it not have wings. I remember I hated the ones with wings because I always got that sticky thing wrong. It never, so I don't know. I don't know about that, but currently it's 10 per package and we give it to girls. But really what this data is data that we are collecting, and hopefully with this engagement, we will continue to have conversations outside, because really what we want to see is, if we are saying we are providing these sanitary towers to ensure that girls do not lose out on education because they have to choose between school or staying at home due to lack of access to sanitary towels. So we want to know that when it gets to the school, it should reach the girl on time, because when we have to measure, because in the end we have to measure the impact and say, have our intervention reduced the level of dropout in schools in terms of girls dropping out due to lack of sanitary towels? And we should be able to provide answers to that. One of the areas that we have therefore identified as an area, as I say, is that whilst they are at school, there are a number of risks. First of all, it might not get to the girl on time. Secondly, a teacher might just decide that they don't like that particular girl because she's so outspoken, so I will not give it to her this morning. We've had stories of, not in the Western Cape, but in some regions where once there is a packet with 10 pads inside, but a child will only get 1 pad. And so coming back to our work, this is something that we are doing. We are monitoring closely because we want to make sure that girls, when we say access, we don't talk delivery only, but we actually talking, getting it, using it, and accessing what you were not to access if you did not have it, and actually doing well at school because the environment is conducive enough to allow you an opportunity and the space to live out your rights. So there is much more to do. And so we just recently had a collaboration with the Department of Women on M&E framework, monitoring and evaluation. This is again speaking to what you said earlier on, that as South Africans, we are known sometimes in some spaces to have very good policies, but very poor implementation. And it's sad to say that to a large extent, I agree. And so I do say that in this particular instance, we said, let's be more about action, just as we are more about talk. Because when it comes to ending period poverty, we can't say more action and less talk. We say more action and more talk. So they go together. We had that, and for the first time as a department, we invited civil society organizations, because we do really believe that it's going to take the whole of society to address issues around period poverty. As civil society, because they are in the front line, because they are the first people at grassroots level to interface with grassroots issues that sometimes government is not always aware of, because we are not direct implementers. And so having civil society in the room really added a lot of value. And what we have decided to do going forward, we have a provincial committee where we have all of the government departments participating in being members of that committee. Again, speaking to the issue of collaboration and coordination. But this time around, we said, I see some civil society organization that we invited is also here. But what we are doing now is to say, we invite civil society organizations to be part of our committee, but they will be in our committee as non-member observers, because civil society needs to also hold us accountable. So I think really the Western Cape is putting itself out there to say, we are going to do whatever we can to make sure that we contribute to addressing issues around period poverty and the eradication of period poverty, and the recognition of civil society as an important partner in making sure that we are accountable, in making sure that we coordinate and we collaborate our work. So this is really something I am looking forward to, and I think it's something that is really going to strengthen the work we do. And lastly, the project itself is small, but the plan for national government and the Western Cape is to roll out this program at municipal level. What that means is that each district will have its own sanitary dignity project that is managed at regional level. What this means is that accessibility will be easier, and also the coordination will be easier. And above all, as I said before, poverty is the root cause of period poverty. We want better education outcomes for our girls. We want more positive society outcomes for our girls. We want better economic outcomes for our girls. And for all these to happen, we need to make sure that the environment that they grow up in is an environment that is conducive to this, that opens up spaces for them to access their rights. Because if we do not, we are going to deal with what I call shadow pandemics, a spike in teenage pregnancy, a spike in HIV infections we had just recently, when we have been dealing with HIV issues for so many years and so much education. And you ask yourself, why is it after so many decades we are now told that we are one of the highest countries in the world when it comes to rate of transmission? I think it was only 2 weeks ago where we said, I read a report where they said we have about 300,000 transmissions, I think, per month. And the sad part is that most of them are under 18. Now, you can't stop to not ask yourself, I wonder how many of them are girls who couldn't afford to buy pads and entered themselves into a transactional sexual situation so that they could just only afford pads. With that said, once again, thank you so much for the opportunity to speak, and I really look forward to more conversation, but also more collaborative work that we can do together. Thank you.
Wow. Oh, gosh, I think that literally just rounded it all off with so much impact story. I think we can never tell a story without starting from the beginning. You can't just jump into this is what we're doing. It has to come full circle to everything. So I really want to thank you, Nomvula, for being here today, representing your department, but also today being as a woman, you came up and you identified as us, as them, you know, and so today we thank you for that. We also wanted to thank you, Sawit, for second year being a partner for New Heritage Foundation, bringing relevant stakeholders to this table, because ultimately we can all just have this conversation. And yes, there's a lot of grassroots organizations within the space and where we work, but we cannot do it without stakeholders that can say narratively, let's change it together, let's collaborate further, let's engage this conversation much further. I do believe after this and future collaborations, I will have a different report to say this is how we've grown. And as organizations in the space, that is what we want to do. We want to grow, not for the sake of growing in the spaces of we want to be recognized, but growing in the space of impacting where we say we will impact, and having that infrastructure and that foundation that is built in that sense. So thank you, Martha, for being here in the room, and also bringing this Nombuso also that is not here today. I'm not sure if she's online, but yeah, I'm sure you will thank her on my behalf. And then also our stakeholders, Genderlinks, WVLSA, and Canada, for being the visibility in the work that we are doing, because our visibility and the awareness that we are doing within the spaces that we are working, we can't do it without partners. That says, let's be out there, let's show you, whether it's a t-shirt, whether it's a banner, whether it's providing us the resources to be in schools and in communities. We ultimately cannot do it without them. So I really want to thank our donors and the ones that support us here and behind the scenes. And I want to recognize the stakeholders that came in. I also want to say hi to you guys. Thank you for coming. I know that I always say the work cannot just be for one organization. We can't do it alone. So it is people that ultimately do it elsewhere that makes it full circle, and it makes the work lighter. So thank you for being in our space. So yes, it is that domino effect that we're speaking about, ending period poverty, but there's a root, which is poverty. And then the shadows of what happens when there isn't resources, and the spike of HIV it's sad for us as young people to have that. Martha, you wanted to say something? Okay, okay. But then there's also, like you said, maybe they are giving themselves because they need the finance to partake in such, and you can only sell yourself to somebody that's got money. You can't sell yourself to somebody that doesn't have money. A majority of them, they are either older and they make choices and they decide, because you are desperate for the money. So they decide whether or not they're going to use a condom, whether or not they're going to give you your right, your voice of why you're doing what you're doing. So that is what ultimately happens, is taking the rights away. But then also, what happens when it's just not the HIV? What happens when it's the pregnancy? And what happens if nobody knows what you've been doing in order to gain that pack of pads? What is the next step? Are you carrying the child? Is there access, or what are you going to do in terms of Many are so afraid because not only are they doing it but nobody sees them, they are afraid that they're now going to be in a home where they're going to label you, or you're so afraid to take that baby home. You're thinking about abortion straight out. And you don't have money where you're going to get the resources to have that abortion done. And some are so desperate they do backdoor abortion. So it's got that domino effect where girls are ultimately having to make that decision, you know. So we are the right people in the room today. I believe, and I do believe, the next year when we get together, we'll have a different conversation. But it's about that action and that collaborative work that we can do to say, I work in this space, this is what we do, and how can we partner and collaborate to action and talk more about it? Because I do believe without the voices, we can't really bring real change. In that statement, Martha, I want to hand it over to you. Do you want to be there? I think, yeah, come here. Let them see you. You are so beautiful.
Thank you very much. I was suddenly moved. Spirit suddenly moved me. I realize I'm the oldest person in the room. I'm 60. I turned 60 this year. But I was very deeply moved by what both Nomvuyo, right? What both of you said, and the young women. And I think what struck me is I work for an organization started by an amazing women who are now in their 80s. Mrs. Zanele Mbeki, Dr. Brigelia Bam, many, many others. But our focus has been poverty eradication from the very beginning, because in 2003, women said we're still too poor to participate in this democracy. And we came back with a model from Chile and Tunisia that employs young men and women to enter families and make sure that every member of every family has all their needs met. And it's a way of pulling government tight through the individual family. And you need about 120,000 young men and women trained as family development workers. We started with social auxiliary workers, each of them accessing now 50 families. With that, you can reach 25 million people. And because our whole planet is on the edge of civilizational collapse because of decisions we've taken, I'm an Afrikaner, so I'm deeply aware that the decisions of Afrikaners have caused family incapacitation, most of the horrors we see around us, not in alignment with how the universe works. So I just want to remind you, we were talking about blood and periods, but not thinking about what all of this leads to, because it leads to souls. It leads to us bringing new souls into the world, partnerships with God, whatever we call this enormous force. And so it is much more than blood. And I just wanted to remind young men and women, we had a lovely conversation before we started about the passing of your dad and how he, at the end of his life, focused on that family, on how even if when you have a broken family, my mom died when I was 2, I'm 60, it still affects me. It still affects who I am. I have the most beautiful 13-year-old son. And I'm aware that my weaknesses as a mom is affecting what he can be. I'm not very disciplined. I don't push him to come and walk with me if I want to walk and he doesn't want to. And there's so many things that I could do better if I had been parented better. And I want to remind us that families are the smallest units of planetary sustainability. We're going through the most terrible times and they're going to become more difficult. And poverty, part of the poverty is that nothing impoverishes women more than single motherhood, because the resources that men bring to the table, not only physical resources, ability to pick up a child from school. I had a husband who died last year, a few days before I came to the last one. He was 78. I remember at the time when we were together, I did have spills at night while I was sleeping. He said, don't worry, I'll clean it. I'll wash. Looking for men, like you spoke, looking for husbands who are not ashamed, who are willing to assist. I mean, I remember 3 moments of period presence when I was a child. When I was young, 12, 13, 14, I went with my father to some event with my brothers and sisters, and I bled through, and I had to ask my brother, could I borrow your jacket to put it around me? I remember sitting I went to study overseas. I went to do a master's in women's history. And before we went overseas, we were all in a group together. And one of the African girls took out a tampon in front of all the men and boys and whatever, and held it up in the thing and said, I have to leave the exam room to go and change my tampon. I would never have been able to do that. And here she was swinging it around, and I love that. And Bella Abzug, who is a Jewish politician in New York, was at a public event with thousands of people, hundreds of people, and somebody pointed out to her that she had blood on the back of her skirt, because she just got up and she obviously had been busy the whole day like many politicians. And she said, why would I feel ashamed? If men were menstruating, they'd be measuring the amount of blood in the bathrooms. And she spoke so beautifully. And as a young woman doing a master's in women's history, I was just so liberated by that. So as the oldest, I hope you forgive me wanting to just come back and say these things, because if we can learn to have sustainable families, look for partners. And I mean, and the point is, it's LGBTIQA plus, whatever partner you want who will fulfill your needs, make sure that they are loving, caring partners, because there's nothing as a special. I've been a single mother. My late husband used to say, but all women are single mothers, which is partly true. But for 6 years, we didn't live together before I came to Cape Town. And now that he's gone and my son is 13, I again know what it's like to be a single mother. But now a widow, but I'm so grateful. I knew what it was to live with somebody who was there for me in every possible way. And I hope that all of you young people will choose partners who are truly supportive and will make the planet a much more sustainable place, because you've chosen somebody who honors and loves and just is there with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that, Martha. Yes. I just want to leave this space open. We've got a few minutes before it. We've got 10 minutes, exactly 10 minutes. Anybody before we close our dialogue that would want to say something? 2 minutes. We can have 3 people for 2 minutes. We've got one there and we've got one there. Which one wants to go first? Okay. We've got one in the audience.
Thank you, Chantal. So my story, your story, our story. I'm glad we've managed to hear different stories this afternoon. So I just wanted to emphasize, we've been talking about poverty being the source of all the period poverty we have as girls and women. So yes, we need to emphasize more about financial freedom. We should train the young girls, the women, to work for themselves. We need financial independence as girls and as women. So as New Heritage, we don't end in just helping girls with pads. We teach them as part of skills training how to do the non-disposable pads. So I'm so proud this afternoon to be part of New Heritage Foundation. And yes, let's be proud as girls and women. Let's be period pride. You know how it is. Period pride. Let's be proud. More voices out there. Let's be period positive. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. There we go. We have another person looking all beautiful.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon. My name is Charlene Sanosi, and I am a firm supporter of New Heritage Foundation and the work that Chantal does. And I will take my 2 minutes in really encouraging you that you have the right people in the room. When I met Chantal, and I'm very unashamed when I say that, when I met Chantal and I heard about what New Heritage Foundation was doing, I was shocked. I was shocked at the fact that in this day and age, there's still girls out there, women out there, that still menstruates without a sanitary pad. And with all the love in the world I have for government and the work that we are doing, we need to increase. We need to take every platform we have and we need to use it. Like I'm Charlene Senasi, yes, I have followers out there. We need to speak to everyone who has ears. And government, yes, you actually do have the power, you have the resources. So when we talk about, and I understand your challenges 100%, when we say we need to get the sanitary pad to the young lady, we need to understand the period is not going to go away next month and wait until we get it right. So again, I'm going to say New Heritage Foundation. These are guys, for the time that I've been stalking them and working with them, I know that they are on ground roots level. And I want to commend you and your team for what you are doing. Also, when we talk about, and my sister Elizabeth touched on economic freedom. Our country, we pride ourselves on our constitution. We pride ourselves that everybody here is free. But what happens if 7 million of us can't go to school? We can't get educated. We shout about gender-based violence, but you know what happened when I don't have a pad? I can't go to school. So now I'm trapped in a relationship where it is based on gender-based violence. And you know why I can't leave? Because I've got nowhere to go. Because I don't have financial freedom. And guys, trust me, I've been there. So I don't talk about things I don't know. When I was in a marriage like that, I couldn't leave because I didn't have the financial freedom. So guys, this is not something that it's just not a something that we talk about. Yes, people out there might say, there's so many things that we can do. Why don't we feed the poor? But this is such a real issue. You know, if I have my period and I don't have a pad and I don't have a tampon, it's happened to me before. Do you know what I had to do? Excuse myself. After I bled on somebody's choreographed couch, I had to take the pillow with me, go clean it off somewhere. And after that, I had to excuse myself from the company. And I was too shy to say I can't afford a pad. That was the shame. And for me, it's really personal. And this is the stigma that we need to break. So everyone who has ears needs to hear us. And I commend you for what you are doing. And I really want you, as you say, we need to get everybody else on board because we can make it happen. There's thousands of people on the Cape Flats unemployed that can come and help and distribute. And government, I love you, I respect you, I'm not knocking you, but let's use the people that we have because this issue is so real. It is so real. It just touches onto everything. When we say it is a human right, we are South Africa, we talk freedom, we talk constitution. Let's make it happen. Chantal and your team, God bless you. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Okay, so the fact that they love me, I haven't instigated that. Okay, and the fact that they're instigating New Heritage Foundation, I also haven't done that.
We love what you do.
Okay, so I just want to thank you so much, Charlene, for that. Thank you for my team. I have to say thank you to my team because those are the people that's on the ground doing the work. I remember we had a new member that's coming, that has come to our team, and we took her into the classroom. She came out, I'm so shocked. She was so shocked in what she was doing. But I want to thank them for continually being present, and not just that we are advocately, intentionally including boys in our program. We cannot end period poverty without the men, and period poverty cannot be more powerful than the men and the women passionate in our country to change the narrative. And women like yourself and women of the organizations and those that are present, period poverty cannot be more powerful than all of us. So it's like Charlene said, let's use our voices, let's speak as much as we can, let's bring the awareness, let's be more active, let's change the narrative, and let's take this time. Tomorrow is International Human Rights. Let us make sure that girls' voices are heard, not by us changing and saying this is what we need to do, but let us say how can we collectively change this? And how do we navigate it going forward? And how do we build beautiful families in? And how do we make sure our girls find that partner that's loving and kind, that helps them do these kind of things? I'm the advocate for ending period poverty, but my goals are more towards their dad, making sure that he knows that their pads are at the right time, the right place, the pads is right. And then I just see them and say, but you didn't put it more to the front. And then they want you to change it as well, more to the front and more to the back. But I mean, I'm the person that's doing that, but he's the one that engages, making sure that they are cared for in that way. So I'm like yourself, Martha, I'm one of those blessed ones that have partners that don't see it as it's not my job, or it's not part of who I am, or part of my existence, or what I must do. It's your job, it's what you're going through. There's not a role play kind of who's got that kind of role. It's not that. So we need more young men, and I think starting from primary school level is where the engagement needs to happen, and education needs to happen, because that also can't be taken out of what we are doing. Education has to be present in our curriculums, especially in life orientation. It should be something that is standard to prep girls even. We're thinking that we in the room know how to prep ourselves for periods. There are thousands, millions that don't even know how to prep for their period going to school, and also what to do when they have their period. So it has to be educational based. And then we can also add the pads, which will be a beneficial item to what they then already understand. So from us and from everybody here at this dialogue, those online, we thank you for joining us. We thank everybody in this room. We thank you for our partners. We thank you for our visitors. We thank you for the department that's here today, that's given us insight. And we hope that we know that collaborative action work going forward from this day, we will have a different topic next year around that, a bigger movement, a more action, collaborative movement that's happening, voices that's going to come to the table. So we thank you for that. And if there's anybody that I haven't thanked, oh, the handsome guy at the back, that is the gentleman. He's the man in menstruation. Can we give him a hand of applause? Yes. So for that reason, we just want to thank everybody that's here and that has supported us, that has come out. The ones that supported us financially, which is definitely our partners. That's Genderlinks. I will mention it again, in Canada, and WVLSA, and it's 16 days for life. 16 days for life. That's it. It's 16 days for life. It's not a 16 days, it is for life. And we're going to arrive in numbers, and we're going to raise the voices. And it's going to shout from the mountaintops and right down in the valley, because it's time that we are heard. And it's time when we speak again, we speak of the change that has happened. So thank you, everybody.